Yup, that's me, walking out of prison for the first time in 17 years, and you can see it all over my face. I've been through hell. 2003, I was sentenced to 144 years in prison by the Commonwealth of Virginia, and to be honest with you, I'm not supposed to be free. I wasn't supposed to even be given the opportunity to tell this story. And before I get started, don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and most importantly, stay free.
So I found myself back in the hole, back in isolation, back in segregation. But this time, at least I would find out when I was getting out. The amount of time I got this time in the hole was only 2 weeks. The old timer kept it real at the hearing because you have to go for a hearing when you catch a charge in prison. And he told the institutional or hearings officer, which is like the institutional judge, that he did swing first. Um, and that was it. You know what I'm saying? I was back on the yard again. This time I was in Ford building. And Ford building, the pod they put me in was like a step up program pod, if that makes sense, which it's like you're out the hole, but you don't get all your privileges. Around this time, they had started this thing where, depending on the type of pod you were in, that's when your power got cut off. And in the dorm I was in, the power got cut off at 8 o'clock. You were locked in at 7. That means there was less time to use the phones, less time to watch TV, less time to just be human. It was a bad combination when people are trying to, you know, be distracted about the reality of being in prison, and then you cut the power and they have to sit in the dark with their thoughts. Rec was limited. Get an hour at best a day, and then you'd have to rush back, try to take a shower to get the chow. It was just chaotic. It didn't work. And after serving about a month in that pod, I was moved officially back into full GP, full general population. And that was cool. That was the beginning, I guess, right in this moment was when I started to meet a lot of the people that today I still call brothers. Um, I got out the hole. I met some good people through, or some good brothers in there that I had known, or through some brothers that I had known. Because prison is a small world, man. It's one of those things where your name is your currency, your name is your weight, and if your reputation is good or bad, it's known anywhere you go. And if it's being talked about your name on one compound, then they probably know you on the next. It is what it is, at least where I was at. Um, I was able to get a job back. No, I ended up working in laundry, and I was working as sewing, repairing like jeans and the blue tops that we would wear at the prison. And it was decent money, which is funny. When I say decent money, it was 45 cents an hour, which that's the highest pay rate outside of what they call an enterprise job that you could have on an institution. Um, I was blessed to have that job. I'm not gonna lie. When I was at work, I had a parlay, and the dude that was in the cell with me, white dude by the name of Timmy, cool dude. Not only was he the guy that did a lot of this ink, his tattoo work on me, but he was running a parlay for me when I was at work. I had residual income in prison. It was crazy. I had the store box. I was good, man. But here we go again. A parlay is a gambling enterprise. It's something that guys are able to gamble on football, basketball, etc. by basically trying to determine at least four, we'll just say 4, 5, or 6 correct picks in regards to sports bets. Meaning, I think Kirk Cousins is going to throw for only 100 yards this game, or over under 300, right? Things like that. And it was good. It was lucrative. If you won whatever that dollar amount you put down, if you put down $3 and you did a pick four, you would get 5 times that amount. That would turn into $16. If you did a pick five, you get 5 times that amount. It'd be 20, and the odds would go up. If the bigger dollar amount you put down, if you put $20 down in commissary and you hit, you get 80 back on a pick four. It was a big risk for me, but a lot of times guys didn't hit. I had to get right one time. They had to get right at least 4 times in order to get the money. and it was lucrative. And it got so lucrative, I had parlays in all the dorms essentially, along with runners or people that would run the tickets back and forth, collect picks, collect tickets from guys that wanted to gamble that night by a certain deadline. Usually 6 p.m. was my deadline, or 5 p.m. because that was the end of chow. And everybody would get their tickets through me through the chow hall workers. And I'd get the tickets back. I would look at the master sheets, and I would sweat the games, and I would wait, and I would knock people off, and I'd collect their money, and it was good. And every now and then somebody would hit and they'd tear my head off, and it was what it was. But I remember I paid my debt. I'd walk out there the next morning with a bag full of commissary so everybody could see it, and it made them want to gamble with me more. Man, those are the times. Not that I missed that thing, but there's a certain rush when you're able to still make things happen in a situation where it's not supposed to. Um, One of my runners, though, man, totally unrelated incident, and I don't want to use the word runner, but a guy that was passing out tickets for me got to fighting with a guy, his cellmate. And when the police came to lock him up, shake him down, they found the parlay tickets, and my name was on them, my nickname. I still to this day don't know why he put my actual nickname. We had worked out a system where we everybody had a certain number assigned to them. So whatever the number is, that's where the tickets had to get to, or that's where the money needed to get to. If a dorm needed more commissary to cover debts, then we would say send it to uh, number 83, and we knew that was dorm 2B, etc., etc. It was just a code, but for whatever reason, he had my name. And when the cops came down to pack up his stuff because they were in a fight, they seen my name. They immediately rushed down to where I was at in a totally separate building. I was minding my business, eating my commissary, chilling. And then they said, "Hey, can you come over here for a second?" I said, "What's up?" They said, "Go ahead and put your hands behind your back." I said, "What?" They said, "Because you're going to the hole again." The hole in prison is meant to destroy you. It's weaponized. It's used to break an individual's will that to them is getting besides themselves. But I didn't care at this point. From 2003 up until now, 2006, I've been in a hole numerous times. Been there, done that. I started to get in the habit of calling it vacation because I didn't mind going back there because I needed the rest. I've always been a hustler behind walls, behind the prison. It never stopped. And I didn't slow down, and I needed to, especially in that environment. The goal is to get home, not stay in there. When you're hustling, you're doing things you're not supposed to, that puts you at the risk of staying in there longer. I was able to get back out the hole relatively quick. I was put under investigation, but they realized or found out that the fight between the guy that had my tickets, that was pushing them, and his cell partner had nothing to do with gambling or gambling debts. It was over the TV, something they had going on. So they let me back out. They moved me down, back out in the general population, and this was the moment I'll never forget it. Brother Willie, just like in the movies, um, big 6'4" militant prison dude, dark as night, lift every weight on the weight pile. I'm leaning against the wall. My homeboys, we done snuck and smoked what they call a feezy. It's basically nothing, but it is green cabbage, but dust. We thought we were doing something. And he walked over to me and said, "Hey, Life," that's my nickname. He said, "Come over here real quick, brother." He said, "If you don't mind, I just want to ask you a question." Yo, big dude like that, like he cool. Like he was part of a religious community, well respected, but still I'm like, man, what did I do? Did somebody connected to me, piss him off, do something to his people? I said, "Here we go." So I walk over to him and he looked down, he said, "Hey, little bro." He said, "You don't even know who you are." I said, at first I was like, man, what, you know what I'm saying? It was a knee jerk response. You know what I'm saying? But he said, "Hold on, man." He said, "I ain't mean it like that." He said, "I just want you to know that you got influence, man." He said, "You see the same way them brothers is following you to do negative things." He said, "I've been down for so long. I know what's going on." He said, "They'll follow you to do right things too." And I speak on that part of the story because this is the moment that the tug of war began. I was still hustling, um, you know, still doing sports betting, still getting the pack in when I could. you know, nickel and diming it in there because I never really had financial support, but I knew what he was saying was true. Like I felt it in my heart. And the last thing he said before we had really walked away or stopped talking for that day, he's like, man, you either leading them to the graveyard or you leading them to something better. And it just hit me, you know what I'm saying? And it's funny because nowadays when I talk to a lot of these young people, I don't necessarily expect to get through the first time, but I just want them to hear me. Just hear me. You know what I'm saying? Because that's what I took the time to just hear him. I didn't necessarily feel him to the way he might have wanted me to feel the conversation, but he planted a seed. You understand what I'm saying? And that seed grew over time because I started to go on this quest, to this journey to start educating myself again in prison. I started to get around brothers like Poetic, Jefferson Ellie, who's still fighting for his freedom. We got over 180,000 signatures for his freedom right now. Never caught a charge. Runs a nonprofit. I got around other positive brothers in there. Brothers that were part of different religious communities so I can learn about different, you know, beliefs and cultures. I started learning about just the history or the science of humans, ourselves, you know, where we come from. And I went into that zone of growth. And I tell everybody, I don't know if I would have grown or even survived if I didn't go to prison. My mother, the last visitation before I went to prison, she told me, oh, I don't know if you know this, but I don't worry anymore now that you're in prison. And it threw me off because I was like, how could you say that? But what she was saying after the fact made sense. She said, I used to hear those sirens, those ambulances, and I didn't know if you were in one of them. When you weren't home at night, I didn't know if you'd make it home, but at least I know where you're at. And that's the reality, man. Prison at this period of my life, it no longer, I guess I started to make the decision that I wasn't going to allow it to destroy me the way I was watching it destroy others. I decided to start fighting. I decided I was going to do something different. But don't get me wrong, I was still straddling the fence. I'm not going to lie. I couldn't let go completely of some of the stuff I was into. But I was starting to move on the right track. I was starting to get jobs working with counselors or staff dining, so I was able to talk to the officers more, which again, in one way it was good because I was utilizing it to help people get my brothers and them jobs, but in another way it was bad because some of the same COs I was talking to, you know, we get the bill and they were still bringing me in the pack, and I was still justifying it. I was like, I'm gonna get this work in, I'm just gonna sell this amount, I'm gonna make sure me and mines eat. You know what I'm saying? And I used to justify it in my mind, but it's the same mentality when I was in the streets. When I was in the streets, I had the same mentality prior to catching this case when I was hustling. I was like, yo, I'm just going to do this for this, but there's no wrong way to do a right thing. I learned that. You know what I'm saying? Um, Time went by. Um, you know, new situations occurred in the prison, but one thing about prison, it's like Groundhog Day, especially on a place like Sussex too. But I ended up over the series of the next couple of months, just continuing to really just work hard, man, and focus on changing my mindset as much as I could. But man, there's always tests. You know, when people in prison see you trying to be positive, they are going to test you. When people in prison see you trying to do something right or move it, they're gonna swear that you faking and fronting or scared. And it seemed like when I started to do right in prison, that's when the real turbulence came. One day I was sitting there reading a book on a bench, minding myself, and I was just reading. It was a book. It was a book about. I think it was a book about Christianity. Excuse me. It was a book, just a book about Christianity. And I read books from different religions, and this guy just walks up to me out of nowhere while I'm on the bench, and he's like, "I don't know why you reading that for. You ain't gonna ever use it. You just read." No, listen. I've never spoke to this guy before, but this is how prison is, man. People will see you doing something positive and come and try to your day up. And that's what was about to happen. Prison's jacked up. It's like being in the worst of the worst hood and you're trying to make it out when you finally make that decision. And just like out here, 9 times out of 10, there's going to be somebody for whatever reason that's going to come by and try to mess up your day, probably because of something that they're dealing with. And this morning, I'll never forget, because it was Sunday and it was the most laid back time of the week in prison, where most of the guys were still asleep. But I got up early and went out into the dorm often because I could get privacy out there and read. That was my reading time. And the football games would be coming on later, so I could claim a spot on the bench in front of the TVs before everybody start coming out. That's it. That was gonna be my day. I was reading a book that evidently was offensive to him. I read books about everybody's religion and beliefs and way of life, because I just thought it was important to learn where other people are coming from in order to connect. But this guy, for whatever reason, first thing in the morning, never spoke to him before. He decided he wanted to come and just start a debate or argument or something. And I remember I had looked over at him when he came up, because he was like, "What you reading that for? It's all a bunch of nonsense." And I was just like, "Good morning," literally, like this same response. Like, I was like, "Good morning, bro. You good?" And he just kept going. And I remember I looked back at him again. I said, "Please, bro, just leave me alone, man. I'm just trying to chill, read my book. I'm not bothering nobody." I said, "I don't even really know you. Like, we never talked." And evidently that was highly offensive, because he began to raise his voice. When he raised his voice, I stood up. Why? Because I'm on a maximum level prison, security level 4, where the arguments turn into things that are far worse. In some prisons, it's just a fist fight, but in other prisons, it's worse. I'm already knowing what this is going to turn into. When I go to stand up, he swung. That was it. Now, I want to say this. I don't know to this day why he came at me. I heard rumors. I heard that another car had put a hit on me. I heard that it was, it was him just looking for somebody to get into it with, that he wanted to go to the hole or get off the compound. I heard a bunch of things. And maybe that was it. Maybe I was just sitting there. But I also know that they say over 70% of those that are incarcerated are impacted by mental health issues. And I got to believe that he fell into that percentage, because there was no reason for him to come against me. I never even said anything to this guy, never did any business. He never shopped at my store box. He didn't owe me anything, or vice versa. He never gambled on any of my parlays tickets. I don't know you. Who are you? And on top of that, the issue at all, before we even got to that point, I didn't want to fight. I had something to lose. He didn't. And I knew that, because you know where people lay at, or where they lie on the food chain in prison. And he was somebody, respectfully, he didn't have support. He didn't get visits. He didn't get on the phone. He didn't get commissary. So he didn't care if he went in the hole. But at this time, I was tired of going to the hole. I had been there so many times already. I'm over it. And although I didn't care, because sometimes it was vacation, I don't want to be back there no more. I got a decent job. I'm getting ready to get a visit probably this afternoon. I'm just trying to make my swole, watch the football games, chill, bro. I get commissary. I got stuff I want to keep enjoying as much as I can in this environment, because if you go to the hole, you don't get to watch TV. And I'm trying to stay out here. It's football season, man. Needless to say, I watched that Super Bowl in the hole too, or didn't watch it, listened to it. But we'll talk about that. When we started fighting, I want y'all to understand, it's concrete and steel. It's not a place where two people should be fighting at. If you fall, if you hit your head, if you slip, it could look far where I know I've watched guys slip and hit a sink, hit their mouth on a sink in the bathroom fighting somebody. I've seen some bad things. And when we got to rumbling, he was a little bit older than me and not as big as me. And hey, he might have been faster, but he fell. When he fell, it was over with. By then, the COs had already let off in the pod their rubber pellets. Everybody hit the floor except for me. Why? The OGs had taught me long ago. You get to fighting, you get to rumbling. Don't go down first. You stay up for as long as you can, because there's no guarantee that the guy that you were fighting is going to go down. That's when he may jump on you with a piece of steel. So I stayed up. Guards ran in. They sprayed me. They sprayed me, but not good enough. They tackled me. I hit the ground. They cuffed me. He's still hollering. At this point now, he's cuffed too. And when they pick me up, he looks at me and said, "I got you. You ain't get out on me. I got you." And I remember saying to myself, I was like, "Yo, man, I put hands on this dude. I look decent right now." But sure enough, man, squinting out one eye, I looked down. It was red on my shirt. I was wearing a t-shirt and gray sweatpants, and he had hit me. He hit me with a piece of steel. I remember literally thinking it was over with at that point because I couldn't. You got to remember, I'm cuffed behind my back. I can't lift up my shirt, and they're rushing me out the pod. And I got pepper spray. I'm sweating now. My other eye that I could barely see out of, I can't see. And they're not lifting up my shirt to check. And I'm telling them as they're dragging me out the pod, I say, "Man, I got hit. I got hit. I'm bleeding. Man, I need help. I need help." They weren't trying to hear none of that. They were trying to neutralize the fight. This is how my Sunday was, y'all. This is what prison is. You just minding my business, reading a book, trying to chill, and now I'm being rushed to Southampton Medical Facility Hospital for trauma. Luckily, it wasn't that bad, but I remember driving there in the ambulance, cuffed, and I'm just thinking to myself, like, "Yo, I'm never gonna see my mom again. Like, it's over with." I didn't know. You know what I'm saying? Even though they were telling me I was gonna be all right, you gotta understand, I'm still bleeding. And all these thoughts came to my mind. I was like, "Man, I don't want to die here. Man, I just want to get home. God, please, please, please." And I got there. Like I said, it wasn't that bad. They stitched me up, cleaned me up, brought me back to the institution, and put me in a medical holding cell before they finally let me back out. They let me back out because they seen on the camera after they did the investigation that I wasn't the aggressor. I was chilling, and he swung first, and that was it. I actually got my job back and kind of kept on going. But that was another moment when I guess it made me think about my mortality. Like, I think there was a point in my prison bid where I thought about my freedom, but I didn't think about my freedom because there was so much prison time. I didn't know if I could make it. But being in a situation where I felt like I was close to death, it made me realize, like, I do want to go home. I don't want to die in here because I thought that I was about to. Um, but yeah, that was how a Sunday went up there. I don't want to die in prison. That became the thought that was consistently on my mind. I went from feeling like I was invincible because I had already been on two institutions to now um, being a victim. I can be honest. Isn't that how it is when you're just minding your business and somebody assaults you? That's what happened. And I realized I'm not invincible. And the threat and the attack that may come, you can't always see. But I knew this. I wanted to limit the possibility of me not being able to hug my mother, like y'all may have seen in that video of me coming home from prison, and tell her I love her. So I started to make certain decisions in my life in prison. I took more seriously to just staying out of the way. I had my brothers with me though, and I'm glad because they started to, you know, be more on point for me because they were pissed off. Excuse my language that happened that morning. They weren't there. It couldn't have been, but um, I remember calling home to my mom after this and just telling her probably for the first real time that I was sorry. I was crying on the phone. I just wanted my mom. I felt almost like a little boy again. And what I would give in that moment just to be able to go home, be in my mother's arms, or be that little kid again. Um, but I was here. I made a decision that took me away from her and freedom in my life. Um, for a very long time. Um, and I just told her I was sorry and I told her I was okay. And I told her, still, I'm going to get home. I'm going to get home. Um, I stayed out of trouble for the most part, but there was still a tug of war. I was still 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Yeah, I didn't want to get any more physical altercations. Yeah, I wasn't uh, calling people out, or going out my way to piss people off, excuse my language. Or I wasn't 0 to 60 anymore. But I was still hustling. It's just survival. It's just what it was. Um, in there, it's you don't eat if you don't have commissary. I didn't always get money from the street. My friends, the people that I rock with, didn't always. So we would do things in order to survive, whether it was stealing from the kitchen or hustling other things we got off the yard or through the visit. It is what it is. I don't condone it presently. I would never support it or tell somebody or glorify it, but this is part of the story. Um, So I was still 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I remember there were people, more old heads, other brothers, they kept telling me like, bro, you trip, man. You tripping, man. You know what I'm saying? Like just get off the camp. Like get off. You on a level 4 still, man. You back in full-time prison mode when you already got down to a low level 2. And you got sent back up here. Now it's like you doing things that may potentially keep you up here with us. And what they meant by that is because if you got a life sentence, which the majority of the camp did up there, they had to stay up there for at least 20 years. So when they seen somebody they rocked with be able to make it up off there, the ones that really rock with you, they was happy. They was happy to see dudes go home. Nobody really went home from that camp, but when somebody did, they was happy, man. So they was like, yo, you got to get up off here. So I stopped the parlay, but ironically enough, man, I started a bingo game in prison. I stopped the parlay because it did, and the store box, and it did put me at risk to get into more situations that could be physical or arguments, etc. So, but I still had that bug in me, and I started a bingo game. You know what I'm saying? The bingo game. It's funny. Dudes used to laugh at it at first. But it worked. In prison, people are always looking for stuff to do, and the rush, the adrenaline, again, from chasing numbers or sweating numbers. You don't have to wait a full 4 quarters on a football game. You can come here, I'll call the numbers out, and you can win a pot, commissary, whatever it is, stamps, hygiene, and you can have a good day. You know what I'm saying? So I started to gain a little reputation, man, running that. That was like a little side mission or side quest. But I got to shout that out because that little game right there continued to make sure that me and mine could eat and survive. You know what I'm saying? On that institution, they used to give us something called meat rock 4, 5, 6 times out the week, man. Meat rock was processed and mechanically separated chicken bulk meat. It's like a big box of pink goo. And they cook it and they put in everything as the protein. Yakisoba, spaghetti. They form it into patties. It's called meat rock. And I believe that's why a lot of guys, ended up with. I got a buddy of mine that's fighting colon cancer for the second time. And Lord willing, that doesn't happen to me because I did eat it sometimes because I had no choice to survive. But when you could hustle and get some commissary so you didn't have to put yourself at risk by eating the food that's coming out the tray slot, oh man, you gonna make sure you're all right. You gonna make sure you got soups in the box. Um, while that was going on, one of the positive highlights was I was able to get in college at John Tyler Community College, and actually maintain a 4.0 GPA, which I'm proud of to this day. No, I don't have my college degree because they killed the program after 3 semesters. I don't know why people think prison is rehabilitating people. It's not. They kill programs or end programs so quick there. Um, and it's just bad. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. Like they hyped us up. We were excited. We were focused. Me and a few of the brothers. We're going to college. We're feeling like we're doing something. We're calling our families. Hey, yo, and I got a 4.0. I'm really, you know what I'm saying? And then they just took it from us. And what was crazy about that was I could have got off Sussex to that level 4, but I had to turn down my transfer and stay up there in order to stay in the college program. And so I had to stay up there longer. They killed the program. Um, but luckily, I was cool with some of the counselors and all that. And the counselor that was in my pod, assigned to my pod that day, you know what I'm saying? She blessed me with, putting me in for an early transfer. You know what I'm saying? Due to the college thing and all that. And I had to fight for that. I had to fight. A lot of stuff I was able to get done is because I knew paperwork and I studied policy, institutional policy. I used to make them show me it. a lot of guys in there, they wouldn't even read the handbook of the rules they were governed by, and they would catch these charges and be told to do things they didn't even have to do or whatnot. But I knew my rights, because even in prison, you're supposed to have rights. There's DOP, IOP, department operating procedures and institution operating procedures. And I was good at that stuff. Put in, she supported it, got me up, put me in for a transfer request, and I was qualified to go to a level 3. This time they weren't going to drop me all the way down to a level 2. I guess they felt I weren't ready to step that far down. So they dropped me to a level 3. And when you put in for transfer in prison, at least where I was at, you're able to put in for 3 different places, but you don't know where you're going to land. I put in for Lawrenceville, but they wouldn't let me put in for Lawrenceville because somebody had me on their enemy list. It was one of my co-defendants. I put in for Greensville, and I put in for Powhatan. And eventually, the morning came where they called me for transfer, and I was sad because I was leaving some of my brothers for a second time, and some that I knew I wasn't going to see them again, because I wasn't coming back to Sussex for a third time. And I got to keep going. That's all I thought, at the moment, and I was happy. And then it's time to get on that bus and see where I was headed.